trilingual poet, translator, and writer. He is the Vice President of LTI Solapur Twin City Chapter. Sir completed a UGC-sponsored minor research project on a study of interpretation of Gandhism in the select 21st century biographies on M.K. Gandhi in 2014. Honorable Sir published more than 20 research papers in reputed national and international journals. Sir is a writer of 5 books. His achievements have been recognized by many different honors and awards, such as Dhalubhau Jain Award for Prabandha, a collection of poems in Marathi in 2006. Lokmangal Award for Excellence in Translation in 2015. Bhau Gandhi Seva Bhavi Teachers Award by Walchand Group of Education, Solapur in 2016. Urdu Dost Award by Kul Hind Urdu Conference, Solapur in 2017. Best English Teacher Award by Sarthi Sunday Club, Solapur in 2019. Thank you so much, sir, for coming and sparing time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I hope I am audible to all of you. Am I audible to all of you, my dear friends?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
you are
sir.
audible.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm really lucky to have been placed among the scintillating resource persons for today's national webinar on English for employability. At the very outset, I would like to thank the organizers, the Arts, Commerce, Science College of Kalwan, Nashik district, and Khandesh chapter of LTI, and my dear friend, Dr. Vaibhav Sabnis as well. Okay, I have got a tiny a little presentation on this occasion. I would like to present it. I think I am the co-host. I have been made the co-host, so I will go directly to my presentation. I've got a small PPT for the benefit, for the advantage of all the participants in this national webinar. Let me go for presentation then. I would like to share my screen. Is the slide visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot. Well, I try my, to make my presentations concrete and comprehensive as well, because I think by the time the presentation is over, the participants should stand to gain a few insights into the topic selected for a particular academic event or endeavor. Well, the outcomes of this tiny little presentation, you can see the participants will get acquainted with the features of English in the beginning, followed by a little bit of introduction to English globally and locally as well. And then we will talk about the main topic of this national webinar, that is different employment opportunities by virtue of English. Well, so you can see the features of English. I would like to thank Professor Jagruti Patel for having broken a lot of ground and for having made my job easier, because she has initiated this very wonderful intellectual interaction by means of her disclosing and revealing presentation altogether. Now we know all these things for that matter, but to make a beginning of my presentation, I would like to throw light on the features of English. We know that English happens to be the most international of all the languages in the world. And it's a fact that English comes at number 2 as far as the number of users of a particular language is concerned, or the size of the family of a language is concerned. So after a variety of Chinese language, that is Mandarin, I think English speakers come at the second level, at the global level. And That is the reason why English has got so much of charisma, so much of magnetism, so much of attraction, whether it is an Indian person or a non-Indian person for that matter. So English happens to be the most international of all the languages. We will come to that particular fact afterwards. English happens to be a sponge language. We know that if you look at the evolution of English, for that you have to go to the European continent, especially a nation called England, which was earlier called Britain, because the original inhabitants of England were actually Britons. And we know what happened in the history of human consciousness, how the tribals from Germany went to England and established their own domination, political domination, financial domination, cultural domination, and of course, linguistic domination as well. We know Angles and Saxons and Jutes. These were the tribal people who went to Britain, the then Britain, and they killed almost 90% of the original inhabitants there and established their rule. And one of these three tribals, and which happened to be the strongest of these tribal communities, that is Angles, established their own political, you call it power in England. And because of Angles, Britain became Angleland and England, and then English. You can see the etymology of the word English for that matter. So English happens to be a sponge language. English has so much of magnetism only because of the fact that English attracts words from other languages. If you look at the original English words, because English comes from one of the Germanic languages, West Germanic language, as it is called, happens to be the mother of English. And if you see the original English words in English language, the quantity of the original words is very less in comparison with the words that have been taken from different sources, different languages for that matter, different European languages. You can see how the words have been absorbed. So we call English to be a sponge language only because of the fact that it goes on absorbing words from different languages. So, and this is the strength of English. We are not simply going to look at the strengths of English only. We will have a look at the weaknesses as well, but I will do that afterwards. And you can see another feature of English is that it has copious vocabulary. If you look at the vocabulary of English, if you look at the words in English, you cannot count them, especially the words that come from the open class, right? Because new words are created and added to the stock of the old words. So you can see what happens when you consider English for its words. You are awestruck because you see that it has got innumerable entries over there. And this is once again a strength of English. Why English survives and why English is going to survive in the time to come as well. English happens to be, if you allow me to go for an exaggeration, an immortal tongue, my dear friends, because it is very flexible. Apart from that, you can see English has comparatively simpler grammar. If you look at the grammar of Sanskrit, for example, if you look at the grammar of some other languages in India, for example, and you compare the grammars of other languages with the grammar of English, you can easily understand that English grammar happens to be simpler than the other grammars. In the world of English teachers, for that matter, we say that grammar is difficult to teach but easy to learn. That is, for that matter, a dictum in the world of English teachers, for that matter. And then you can see English happens to be an economical language as well. Why do we say English to be an economical language? Because you can see it is said by a number of people, and it is a kind of an exaggeration for that matter, that you can speak English while putting a cigarette between your lips. Don't do this literally. This is only an example because English happens to be a language where you can go for a number of regulations and modulations as far as the spoken English is concerned. So you can see how English speakers, for that matter, if you look at the Western world, you think about one very important parameter, the parameter of average age. If you look at India for that matter, the average age of Indians happens to be 60 or 65 for that matter. But if you look at the Western world, especially the languages which regulate and modulate their pronunciation, their speech for that matter, they live longer. And that is what I tell my students as well: speak English and live longer, because English happens to be, as far as its pronunciation is concerned, a very economical language. It saves your energies. If you look at Indian languages, we don't speak Indian languages, we simply shout them. And we know if you start shouting a language, there cannot be a communication at all. But English requires minimum of energies to, yes, concretize it in its spoken form. Apart from that, English happens to be a dynamic language. It's a lively language. It keeps changing. In the world of languages, it is said that a language that changes survives. A language that doesn't change dies a poor death. If you look at a number of dead languages, Sanskrit for that matter happens to be a dead language. It is used in the academic circles only. There is one exception to this particular statement. There is one place in Karnataka, I'm not certain about the name of that place, where Sanskrit is used for day-to-day interaction instead of milk or doodh, or there is a word for milk in Kannada called halu. They say kshiram. There is one village in Karnataka where Sanskrit is used. But if you look at these languages, Old Greek for that matter, Old Latin, these are supposed to be the dead languages because they did not change at a particular point of time in the history of the evolution of these languages. Okay, so these are some of the features that you can keep at the back of your minds. And you can see, this is what I wanted to show regarding the words in English. If you look at the original words, only 26% of the words come from West Germanic variety of language, which happens to be the mother of English. And if you look at the contributions in the course of these 1,000 years, my dear friends, you look at different European languages like Greek and Latin and French and Spanish, and of course Hindi. If you look at the latest edition of Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary, you can get a supplement at the end of the dictionary where you can see a list of Hindi words, derived by English, absorbed by English. So you can see this is the strength of English, but there are some weaknesses as well. I will go quickly through the weaknesses of English, because when you are dealing with a particular concept, you must be objective, you must be detached, you must be neutral. So you can sing the strengths of English, but you can grumble about certain weaknesses in English. You can see the first weakness is that there is no one-to-one correspondence between signs and sounds. So English is not written as it is spoken, and vice versa. It is not spoken as it is written. So you can see this is a big hurdle in the way of the new learners of English, my dear friends. So this is one of the weaknesses that we have to overcome by the sweat and blood of our brow. Another very important feature that English has: many of the users of English don't have any acquaintance with accent. They are not able to pronounce this word as well. So you can see word accent plays a very important role. It differentiates one word from the other. There are so many words in English which have similar spellings, but they are pronounced in more than one way. So it creates a problem when you are using a word like perfect, my dear friends. If you pronounce this word as perfect, it is an adjective. But if you pronounce this word as perfect, it is a verb. But even teachers of English, have nothing to do with these types of, you call it subtleties involved in the pronunciation of this very beautiful language called English. Intonation is once again a $1,000,000 question. Many people use their own mother tongue intonation. For example, if you happen to be a speaker of Hindi, it creates a lot of impact on your English. If you speak Marathi for that matter, it creates an impact on your English. In Solapur, we see different languages like Kannada, Telugu, and a few other languages. And these languages also create an impact on your English. So intonation plays a very important role in making your speeches, making your pronunciation perfect. If you know what tones are, if you know that speakers are also singers, right, my dear friends? But we know that there are cacophonous singers. People don't sing languages properly. You have to use different types of tones when you pronounce different types of sentences. Now, this is one area where we fail a lot, especially the Indians. Even I don't say that all the people in England know intonation. Layman, for that matter, don't have anything to do. But we are not talking about layman. We are talking about educated, literate people, for that matter. You can see varieties of English also create problems within India. Someone has rightly said, in India, we don't use English with E capital. We use English with E kept small, because there are Englishes that are used in India, right? We have different varieties of English. Don't uh, motivate me into talking about these varieties, because people don't, take this in good spirit. If you happen to be a South Indian, you have got a typical way of pronouncing English, using English. If you happen to be a North Indian, but a teacher of English, for that, must be an ideal, singer of English. He must pronounce English in a proper manner, because he cannot offer lame excuses, my dear friends. No. So varieties of English, we call them dialects, for that matter, create problems, because English is not used uniformly all over the world. We have different varieties. I can give an example of what happens when a dialect is being used. Uh, a couple of Indians, old Indians, for that matter, they were old people. They went to Australia, right, to see their son and daughter-in-law, of course, after long gap. And the old man was sick, because of the travel. We call it a jet lag, for that matter. And his dutiful son took him to a doctor in Australia. And the very moment the old man with his dutiful son went to the clinic of an Australian doctor, the doctor asked him a question: "Have you come to die?" Now you can see the patient was taken aback. He was awestruck. He was threatened, and he had to tell the doctor that he had not gone there to die. But you can see this is the dialectal variety that creates problems. The Australian doctor used Australian variety of English. In Australia, A is pronounced as I. They never say Monday, they say Monday, Tuesday, today, right? So you can see he actually wanted to ask him a question. Have you come today? But you can see this is the problem that English has. And there are misunderstandings. There are sometimes quarrels as well, because of the varieties of English, and the varieties of English being used for different purposes. Now you can see another problem that we Indians have is the phobia that the people of India have regarding English. On an average, Indians suffer from Anglophobia. Whatever is English, for that matter, creates problems for us. So we are afraid of English language as well. So we have to get rid of this phobia, the Anglophobia, as it is said. Okay. So you can see this is a neutral analysis of English, the features of English, and of course, the weaknesses of English, for that matter. Now, I can see English globally. We'll quickly go through this, because we want more time for the discussion of employability in English. Okay. I can see English is used by 500 million people. Now, these are the data that you can collect from any web source, for that matter. And it is at number 2. I have already talked about this. It is a national and official language in more than 50 nations in the world. So you can see the strength of English, for that matter. And it is intra-national language in many nations. For example, you can see the Indian situation. We have accepted the 3-language formula, right? The state language, the national language, that happens to be Hindi, and we have this international language, that is English. So English can be used as an intra-national language. Okay, this is the situation that shows how English has spread, across the globe, my dear friends. Okay. Now you can see locally, if you talk about English and its relation to India, we go back in time and see the 19th century scenario, how the English Education Act was introduced in 1835. And this is the inception, this is the beginning of English. This was the first encounter that Indians had with English, my dear friends, because of Thomas Macaulay's minutes and the educational policy accepted and adopted by the former rulers. English, became a part and parcel of India for that. So against the British rule and the post-independence scenario, we can also see how English has been recognized by the Constitution of India. Way back in 1963, Official Language Act, along with Hindi, for that matter, English has also been accepted. If you look at the eighth schedule of the Constitution of India, 22 languages have been recognized by the Constitution, and the 23rd language happens to be English. So you can see within India, it can be used as a contact language, and it can be used as a creative medium as well. Okay. Now you can see, as far as now I'm coming to the topic proper, the employment opportunities through English. If you ask me, I can give you a dozen different areas where English, fares well, right? So you can see, we'll have a look at all these areas one by one. I will go through all these areas quickly because I know there is another resource person, Honorable Dr. Amar Singh. Even I am very eager to hear him. Okay. So you can see the first area, as Professor Jagruti Patel, madam, talked a lot about this area, that is education. So education has a lot of, you call it productivity as far as employment opportunities are concerned. Right from KG to PG, you can have careers for that matter in different levels for that matter of schooling or education, as we said, right from teachers to professors for that matter. So this is one very fertile, you call it area, prolific area, very productive area for that matter, where English can be used as a source of livelihood. Employability for that matter. You can interpret employability in different ways. You can call it career, you can call it source of livelihood, you can call it, but teachers, say that, this is not only a source of livelihood for that matter. This is actually, someone is dabbling with my presentation. I don't know who. I see some marks on my slides as well. This is the second time that I got this disturbance. So you can see, education happens to be a very important area now. And I need not talk more about this particular area because all of you know more about this, because we are part and parcel of this process, because education happens to be an endless process and there are different career opportunities by means of through English. Well, now I'll go to the second possibility, and you can see it is translation. First area of employability can be seen in education, and the second, for that matter, can be seen in translation. So you can see translation happens to be a very important phenomenon as far as India is concerned, because in India, so many languages are used. We know the Constitution has recognized 22 languages, and there are so many languages that are used unofficially. Some of these languages don't have scripts as well. So you can see a lot of literary production is there as far as India is concerned. So translation happens to be a very important area for, getting a career. But you can see, unfortunately, there are very, you call them few number of good translators as far as India is concerned. I always tell my students that this is an area where we can, focus a lot, because if you look at Indian situation, every Indian knows three languages. His state language, that is his mother tongue, the national language for that matter, and this is the international language. So you can see, as far as Indian situation is concerned, Indians are luckier than the people coming from other nations, my dear friends, because India happens to be a polyglot, you call it, entity. It is a multilingual nation. So you can see a lot of, you can see, literary works keep waiting for translation. So translation happens to be a very prolific area, a very fertile area altogether, where you can try your hands. I'm talking about the potential translators for that matter. I'm making an appeal to them. If you are good at 2 to 3 languages for that matter, or different languages for that matter, you can try this particular area of translation. I'm telling to all the participants, I'm making an appeal because I am a practitioner of this area, because I have translated a few books from Marathi to English. I have done the translation of research articles, research papers for that matter. I have done the translation of a number of theses as well. So you can see this is an area where people don't dare to enter. But if you are good at 2 languages or 3 languages for that matter, you can certainly try your hands at translating, and you can be a good translator as well as interpreter. Another very important area as far as employability is concerned, it is interpreter. It's a very important, you call it, process along with translation. Well, so you can see in the 8th schedule to the Constitution of India, we see different languages being recognized. So this tells us a very important, you call it, fact about India, that translation happens to be an area which is not explored by people with a lot of potential for different languages, but you can certainly try your hands, because there is a lot of money. If you simply translate one A4 size page from a particular language to English, you get at least 300 or 400 rupees. This is something that is being charged as far as Solapur is concerned. So you can see right from these small scale bits of translation, we can go to the larger areas of translation. And translation is actually a kind of, you call it, cultural exchange as well. It's a means, it's a medium for cultural exchange. You can see there are so many literary works, that require to be translated into this international language called English. So you can see there is one very wonderful site for the people who want to try their hands at the translation. You can see there is one government undertaking, I beg your pardon. It is called National Translation Mission. And you can see this NTM, that is National Translation Mission, undertakes different types of activities like training programs and certification of the translators as well, creating a database for that matter. So you can see if you go via these types of agencies, you can establish yourself as a translator. Okay, this is the one area. Now the next area happens to be creative writing. Now you can see this requires a user of English for that matter to be very sound as far as his language is concerned, because creation is not like playing pebbles, my dear friends. It's a very tall order. And we know, if you look at the history of Indian English literature, it is supposed to be, right? There are different names that have been given by different historians of Indian English literature, or Indian writing English, as it is said. So you look at these people, you can also be a creative writer. For that, you must have a few, you call it, conditions fulfilled. You must be good at imagination. You must be able to make imaginative use of language. If you look at William Shakespeare, I normally keep referring to William Shakespeare because Shakespeare happens to be a milch cow for a teacher of English. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry can go to Shakespeare and milk him. If you look at William Shakespeare's example, William Shakespeare, if you look at his education alone, he was not able to complete his primary education, my dear friends. No? So he ran away from his native place, Stratford-upon-Avon, and established himself as a writer, as a successful dramatist in London, my dear friends. Now, how could William Shakespeare become a successful writer, a successful dramatist, my dear friends? There are so many parameters that we can talk about. And one of these parameters happens to be his vocabulary, his word power, his language. So you can see what William Shakespeare wrote was actually a kind of rewriting, right? So it was a kind of recreation for that matter, because William Shakespeare did not have anything new to tell to the world. of readers for that matter, my dear friends, is simply, transformed, the tales and stories and anecdotes from histories and chronicles, right, into immortal literary works. So you can see creativity happens to be a skill that comes at the higher level, that comes at the climax of all the skills of a language. So this is an area where you can try your hands if you happen to be, you know, rich as far as English is concerned. Okay. Critical writing is also an area. After creative writing, we know that uh, there are going to be critics who are going to criticize your creation, your writing for that matter. There's a very wonderful book by a very famous American novelist, uh, Hemingway. He has written a very wonderful novelette, The Old Man and the Sea. And we see what happens to the old man, the old fisherman in this novel, right? It is actually an allegory that talks about the condition of a writer, the condition of a creator. By the time he creates his work, his literary work for that matter, it is attacked by the critics in such a manner that only a skeleton remains at the end. So you can see critical writing, and you can see a number of examples. The historians of English writing Indian writing English, which is also called Indian, you call it English literature by a number of critics. And you can have a career in this area as well. It's supposed to be, once again, a very tall order, because just as creativity is quite difficult for any Tom, Dick, or Harry, even critical writing is also quite difficult. But now you can see another area happens to be journalism. And if you look at the history of Indian English journalism for that matter, it all began in the 18th century itself. There was a man called James Augustus Hickey. He was actually an Irishman who started a periodical in English. So it is supposed to be an 18th century phenomenon. And then you can see the evolution of different very popular newspapers in India, of course, English newspapers in India, like the Times of India or the Hindu, the Indian Express, or Free Press Journal for that matter. You can see you can try your hands at journalism as well. There are different offices that you can look forward to as far as journalism is concerned. So you can see a degree in journalism is quite necessary, but if you want to be an English journalist, you must have a good, you call it acquaintance, good acquisition for that matter of English language as well. So this is another area where you can try your hands. And it is once again a very potential area for that matter. Then I have been impressed by this area, that is called commentary. Commentators for that matter, have played a very important role in my life, at least. I'm getting very subjective because I know that I heard a lot of cricket commentary, my dear friends, during my childhood, my school-going age for that matter. I used to listen to these English commentators like Anand Setalvad and Narottam Puri, J.P. Narayan for that matter. Harsha Bhogle is the latest phenomenon for that matter, a very scintillating example of the use of English, because I know that he rubbed his shoulders with the Australian commentators and the British commentators for that matter. And you can see he came up with flying colors, my dear friends. If you look at Harsha Bhogle's career, he started from the lowest rung because, okay, he was a highly qualified person, I am for that matter, but it's quite difficult to survive in the world of English commentators, taken globally, my dear friends. And there are some cricketers turned into commentators like Sunil Gavaskar and Sanjay Mandrekar. So you can see commentary happens to be, or you call it office of a commentator happens to be, the job of a commentator happens to be a very potential area for that matter, for the people who always look forward to a source of earning as far as English is concerned. Okay, then we can see content writing. Now this is once again 21st century phenomenon, and you can see how content writing has become another area, a prolific area as far as employability in English is concerned, because content writing is another very attractive area for the potential users of English in India as well, because we see the examples of uh, the successful content writers, because writing content for websites and blogs and other social media and of course ebooks has become a very important process these days. So you can see this is another area where you can try your hands quite successfully. Another area is blogging, and blogging happens to be once again a recent, you call it phenomenon, and it came as one of the consequences of the information and technology revolution, my dear friends. So you can see blogging happens to be a kind of online journal, online periodical itself. And it is also called information website. You seek information by means of reading blogs, and you can exchange information by means of going for this very wonderful phenomenon called blogging. And there are different varieties of blogging, and there are different varieties of bloggers as well. And you can see the examples of top bloggers in India. If you look at Amit Agarwal only, you can see he earns, you call it lakhs of rupees for that matter by virtue of doing this particular phenomenon, the process called blogging. Another area happens to be a very dear area for that matter to all of you. It is anchoring. And as far as anchoring is concerned, once again, as Professor Jagruti Patel, madam, talked about communication and perfect communication in English. If you happen to be a perfect communicator for that matter, you can try your hands at anchoring as well. And there are different areas where you can seek this type of a job of an anchor. And if you look at the uh, photographs that I have, put up on this particular slide, I can see the icons, the idols as far as the potential anchor persons are concerned. They always look at these people and seek motivation and inspiration as well. Pranay Roy is a very famous name in the world of, you call it news anchoring, NDTV. He happens to be the founder of, and then we have a very wonderful person. I don't know how many of the younger people, the younger generation, know this man called Siddharth Basu, because Siddharth Basu used to be phenomenon, of course, in the late 1980s and 1990s for that matter, when we used to listen to quizzes, when we used to see quizzes for that matter on Doordarshan. And Doordarshan happened to be the only television channel those days for that matter, right? Because the only source of entertainment for the people in India. And Siddharth Basu, a wonderful user of English for that matter, is one of my idols and icons as well. So you look at the other examples like Karan Thapar and Simi Garewal as well, and you can think about this career as well. I know that there are anchor persons who deal with their own mother tongues, right? They communicate in their own mother tongues. But you can see communicating by making use of the national language, that is Hindi, and international language, that is English, is a different ball game altogether. But this is another area where you can seek a lot of profit. And then comes reviewing. Now you can see you might have read reviews and get benefited by this very wonderful activity of reading reviews in different types of periodicals, whether they are newspapers or weeklies and magazines for that matter. You can see I used to read Khalid Mohammed a lot, who wrote for Times of India. Very wonderful, terse and pithy language. And I was surprised by his use of monosyllabic and disyllabic words. Plenty of monosyllabic and disyllabic words used to be a part and parcel of the reviews written by Khalid Mohammed, And there are some other names you can see. And of course, these are the pioneers as far as reviewing in English in India is concerned, like Bharadwaj Rangan and Nikhat Kazmi and Rajiv Masand. And if you read them, you can easily understand that they have a flair of English. And apart from that, reviewing books as well, reviewing, revisiting old classics, very of the Hindu. I don't know how many of you read the Hindu. I know my uncle who has been reading the Hindu for the last 50 years, my dear friends, 5 decades. And you can see how reading these newspapers like the Times of India, especially the Hindu for that matter, enriches your language. Okay. And then comes another area which happens to be copy editing. Now, this is something that the English teachers are troubled with, at their respective colleges or schools for that matter. So people come to you, and ask you to proofread the matter in English, or suggest corrections and this and that. So copy editing also happens to be an area where you can get a lot. And you can see there are different varieties of copy editing, like proofreading. You simply read the text for orthographical errors or grammatical errors, for that matter. It is supposed to be proofreading. Line editing happens to be a very different process of copy editing, where you change the entire tone of the writing, entire structure of the writing, for that matter. So line editing is not that easier as proof reading happens to be. And then fact checking and rewriting, many a time for that matter, I get, the written text in English which require rewriting. So you have to write it again. So this happens. So copy editing happens to be another very prolific, very fertile area where the potential users of English can try their hands well. And I come to, I'm finishing my presentation. I know that I have taken a lot of time. And this is, I think, the last but one slide that I'm presenting to you. One example that I would like to give to you of language industry. We might not have thought about this way back in 20th century, my dear friends. But in the 21st century, so many very wonderful, phenomena take place. And this is one very wonderful example of language industry established by a person who lives in Pune. His name is Sandeep Nulkar. So simply theorizing is not sufficient. We should give some examples along with theorizing as well, so that the potential users may seek inspiration and motivation from these examples. So Sandeep Nulkar runs a language industry in Pune, right? He happens to be an alumnus of Symbiosis College in Pune as well, and he happens to be the founder and chief executive officer of you call it an industry that is BITS and vernacular language technologies. He's a polyglot. He knows more than a dozen languages, my dear friends. Most of the European languages, he practices. It is not simply an acquaintance or nodding acquaintance with these languages. He practices these languages, and that is the reason why you can see he has got this company established in Pune, and that works in almost 22 different official Indian languages, and of course the foreign languages as well. So you can see this is a concrete example that I'm giving to you, how a man can come off with flying colors as far as language industry is concerned, translation and interpreting and content writing and whatnot. So you can see Sandeep Nulkar's example is a source of endless inspiration and motivation for all of us. I'm coming to the last slide, and of course I would like to share with my fellow participants a very important set of magazines put forward by a very famous British philosopher of language, and his name is Paul Grice. And this is actually about the conversational perfection that we can acquire if we practice these magazines. But you can see you can adopt them in other areas as well, right? So you can see if at all you want to be a good communicator, you have to pay attention to these four very important, dicta or maxims. What is the first maxim? It is about quantity. So whenever we exchange information, we should exchange the exact information that we want to exchange. So this is the maxim of quantity. The second important maxim happens to be that of quality. And quality, this maxim is concerned with truthfulness, objectivity in communication. So you can see it should be an objective interaction, objective transaction, by means of employing a particular language, for example, English. The third important maxim is about the relation, I beg your pardon, relation. And it is nothing but the relevance as far as communication is concerned. It should be relevant, it should be logical, as it is said. So language is psychological, chronological, and of course, logical as well. And the last maxim that Paul Grice talks about is manner. It is about clarity. So you can see you must say what you want to say, and you must mean what you say. And there is one very wonderful quotation as far as Urdu language is concerned, कि अपना कहा अगर आप समझे तो क्या समझे, अपना कहा अगर आप समझे तो क्या समझे, मजा कहने का तभी है जब आप कहे और दूसरा समझे. So with this, I would like to express my gratitude towards the organizers of this very wonderful event. And this was all I wanted to say on this occasion. I think I have not exceeded the time limit. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent and very planned and